Here we are. Welcome everyone to the ASL Week 1 review with SirMoth, and I am joined again by Lord Brad himself.
Oh.
And this is just going to be a very short review of each of the matches that happened in the week, maybe some of the things that we thought were really cool or interesting, some of the things that could have changed, whatever just comes to our mind. And these matches aren't in any particular order except for a few special ones at the end that we will get to later. But starting things off, we had Lele versus IL Kid, and this match was actually done the very night of the draft, I believe, or maybe it was the morning after, something like that. But there wasn't too much time to prep or anything like that. They just went straight in, and this match, as you can see on the screen, I mean, Tapu Lele got a full 6-0 sweep, and one of the big things that led to that is, well, Lele said during the battle that they didn't particularly know what Tapu Lele did, and they didn't know that it got Thunderbolt. So they tried putting a Corviknight in front of it, and then it died to a Thunderbolt, and Tapu Lele, with Leftovers and Calm Mind, managed to just set up to full and take the match.
And I think in that particular match, Tapu Lele didn't hit the field until turn 14, I believe, when Tapu Lele finally hit the field. And it stayed on the field until the end of the match, which I think was like turn 40. So Tapu Lele spent a long time standing out there.
Yeah. And before Tapu Lele came in, it was definitely looking like a very even match. I mean, Scissor was a really good defensive pivot for IL Kid. The match started out with a good offensive pivoting from Inteleon, and there were a decent number of switches back and forth with no one really gaining any ground until that Tapu Lele hit the field, and then it just swept through.
No, that was pretty much the story of the game. Well played on both ends. Prep looked good from both teams. It looked like it was going to be quite the battle until it wasn't, and it was over.
Yeah, especially for how little time that they actually spent prepping. I was pretty impressed with some of the sets that came.
And I mean, of course, actually, no matter what happens in the rest of these matches that we review, Tapu Lele is at least tied for our kill leader for the season and tied with the best differential.
Yeah, that's a very good start for Tapu Lele.
Match 2, right?
Yeah, let's move on to match
Match
2.
2 is you and Brett. It was a pretty good match. Tightly contested, I think, for most of the match. A little bit of hacks jumped into this one. Some, oh gosh, just a handful of things. Was it 4 or 5 turns maybe where the server decided to step into the field of play? I thought turn 1 was a big turn. You had the Scarf Lando T taking 80-something% from the Greninja. Really, it was a big play really early on. You had some handy prep with the Miss Magius with a blunder policy, right? I remember that.
Yep, Inferno
There,
Blunder
there were
Policy.
some really fun things that happened in this match, but at the end of the day, I think both of you guys played well. I think the hacks played into it a little bit, but I think Brett played really well. Poliwrath actually did really nice in this particular match. I thought it was a good match overall. Nice, close, contested match.
Yeah, if you were to count out the hacks, Discharge did paralyze Poliwrath. I switched into Victini. It paralyzed Victini, then got a full para on Victini, which was about to kill the Vikavolt. But if you were to discount all of that, I think the moment that the tide really swung in Brett's favor was with the Scarf Vanillux outspeeding my Scarf Landorus Therian and killing it. because there was no removal on Brett's team. So if I could have gotten up Stealth Rocks, at that point Greninja was dead to Stealth Rocks, and it would have just been really good for me. But instead, the Vanillix surprised me, got rid of Landorus Therian, and then I had no other checks to Vikavolt. So Vikavolt really just survived through all of my team and demolished it.
And by the time you get to the end game, and you've still got Slowbro intact, but all the things left alive are the Dragapult, the Vikavolt, the Greninja. None of the things Slowbro is really interested in trying to deal with. So I think you had it end game in mind, but by the time we got there and some of the different things that happened in the battle, it was just too late.
Yeah. So I guess we'll move on to match 3 over here. This one was Peaches versus Shadow, and you actually remember this replay a little better than me, but from what you said earlier when we were talking, and from what I remember, Toxicroak was very good in this match because it completely countered the Milotic, and it was able to just switch into that all of the time. And
that was a big part of the flow of this match. And credit to Peach for his prep, because what happened is every time Milotic hit the field, Toxicroak was built to come in on Milotic. And Milotic hit the field a lot because it's a Milotic. And it started a chain of events that played in Peach's favor every single time. So every time Milotic hit the field, Shadow wasn't able to get the double switch in just right, or it never played in Shadow's favor. Every single time Milotic hit the field, it got Peach further and further ahead in the momentum game.
Yeah, and there were also a couple key times when Zebstrika was able to come in and do some good work, like fire moves against the Kartana, and like between Flame Charge and Overheat against the Kartana and the Orbeetle. Both of those took a lot from that, and overall just a couple there were just a couple Pokemon on Peach's team that were just slightly built, I don't know if this is the right wording, but built slightly better to counter Shadow's team than Shadow's team was to counter Peach's, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I also will say that there were a couple of times in the match that, frankly, Shadow let Peach off the hook. I think it was turn 19 or 20. Shadow had his Hydreigon on the field in front of a Slowking, and instead of clicking a move, he swapped out into Milotic, which recycled the Toxicroak thing and got Peach way out ahead again. So there were a couple of times when Shadow could have, there's not if Hydreigon starts clicking moves 5-6 times a game, you're in some trouble. Hydreigon's not the kind of mon that you need to get 5 or 6 hits off against you. And Hydreigon had opportunities to take moves, and it did not do that. And I think that was certainly didn't help Shadow's cause any. It helped Peach's cause quite a bit.
Yeah, Hydreigon definitely looks like it could have done some major damage this game.
It's a tough balance. You want to protect those big mons, your big offensive threats. I know you want to keep them safe. You also drafted them for a reason, so sometimes you got to click that button.
Yeah, so you definitely have to find that balance. You can't do what I did with my Landorus Therian and decide, oh yeah, U-turn is the one to click against an ice type, but you still do want to be clicking moves sometimes when you have those opportunities, for sure.
It's a gamble. Game we play. But, I think it's one thing to have a quad ice weakness versus an ice type. It's another thing to have maybe the best Dark Pulser in the game versus a Psychic type and to not click Dark Pulse.
Yeah.
We can jump into match 4 if you want to with Nemo and 30 Logic. This was a unicorn match. I mean, this was a rarity of rare things. This was Dirty Logic's first draft league game ever. Ever. I think he'd played ladder, of course, and he's been in the ASL for a while. He was a spectator last season and has been active in chat, and he earned his spot. Good for him. But this is, I mean, this doesn't happen a lot. So first draft league match in his history. He prepped well. I thought he played pretty well up until the point that Blastoise came in and clicked Shell Smash. We do allow Shell Smash in this league. Don't know for how long that we will, but we do allow it. And everything was going pretty well. It was a pretty competitive match. I thought both sides were playing pretty well. I thought Nemo was ahead when he did end up clicking Shell Smash, but I thought that it was a pretty decent match back and forth until that it wasn't, and then it was over very quickly.
Yeah. I think, definitely. I was in Dirty Logic's same position. I mean, just a couple months ago. I'm fairly new to this too, and I can tell from this first match, like the first couple matches, coaches latch on to things and improve so quickly. So with this being, I would say, a pretty good showing from Dirty Logic, I am definitely really excited to see how well they're going to do for the rest of the season. The only thing that I was really noticing, besides, of course, Mega Blastoise shell smashing, and I mean, that's the game, but the Rotom Wash, it was clicking that Volt Switch pretty much every time it came in, despite the fact that Zeraora was coming in pretty much every time Rotom Wash was in. But other than that one minor thing, I mean, like you said earlier, it's a predicting game. You've got to determine when to use moves and when not to, and sometimes it doesn't go in your favor, but overall, I would say that Dirty Logic played this game fairly well.
And the only other thing I would just say as a takeaway, I love Lucario, and we didn't get to see Lucario hit the field of play. So disappointment for me personally. Looking forward to seeing Lucario get back on the field and hopefully put in a little bit of work in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to Lucario as well. One of my favorite Pokemon in Draft League. So, I guess on to match number 5. This was your match versus Static, and this was also a pretty hacksy match. I mean, 4 paralyzed, that's kind of rough in 8 turns to be fully paralyzed 4 times with the Mega Charizard, which is one of your hardest hitters. But, I mean, outside of the hacks, I think that the game was played really well on both sides. I particularly like your prep with the Silvally Electric against the Mega Pidgeot. I really enjoyed seeing that. And Electrode was actually getting a lot of momentum for you. I'm happy to see you using Electrode to its fullest yet again. But it was coming in and volt switching, and it was gathering a lot of momentum for you early in the game. And I definitely think that the game could have gone your way with a little bit, like just 1 or 2 less full paralyzations, but that's Pokemon sometimes, and that's not to discredit Static. I will say that Static played pretty well throughout the game as well, bringing, I think Grimmsnarl was a pretty good bring with that Thunder Wave, and Mega Pidgeot, it did do a lot more work than I was expecting, I'll be honest. I may have been underrating that Pokemon a little bit.
It was a really good match, and there was a lot of hacks, but do just give credit to Static. He bested me that day. Look forward to play him in the future. Sometimes when you play Pokemon, you know what you're signing up for. I mean, Pokemon is Pokemon is Pokemon, and it's just been this way for a long time. And sometimes you have to beat your opponent. Sometimes you have to beat your opponent and the server, and I wasn't good enough to beat my opponent and the server, and that sucks. But it is the game. I do wish that Charizard Y would have been able to get a couple more moves off because, when you draft a mon like Charizard Y, don't draft it to do much else than click moves.
Yeah.
Something like Charizard Y, you just want it to click moves. More moves it clicks, more likely I am to win. So for it to get parried 4 times out of 8 turns, I think is what you said.
Yep. 8
That's
turns.
that's it's crippling. But it's the game, man. If I don't like it, I could go play blackjack. So it is what it is. And Static played really well. And credit to him for getting a good win and for prepping well. I liked a lot of his team. I liked a lot of my team. I think it was a tight match, honestly, and I think we both played really well. The early game was tight. There was a lot of fun stuff happening early on. I thought it was just a really clean match overall. Hacks got in the way a little bit, but otherwise, really fun match. I enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed watching it. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of the sadism. I think everyone enjoys a little bit watching some people get hacked. Not to say that I enjoyed watching it happen to you, but it was still an entertaining match either way.
It is that way sometimes, and I blame hacks for everything, and I don't want to be that person. It's just part of the game, and you got to deal with it. And like I said, if you want to win, sometimes you got to be your opponent and the server. It's just the way that it goes sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Weeks. Good Lord. Match 6 was TCP and Altaria. Really good match. Even though it was a 5-0, I thought that it played well until a certain point, similar to the Tapu Lele match earlier, right? The very first match we covered. I
Yep.
thought this was a really nice game. What turn was it that the Luxray got the player off on Dracozolt? That was
Uh
turn 4.
I yeah.
I was pretty stunned by that. Dracozolt naturally outspeeds Luxray. To see Luxray come in and get 94% off from a play rough, and then Bolt beat to miss with Hustle. Which why would you ever run a Hustle mon? I know they're
Yeah.
super strong and powerful, but God, I don't know that I hate myself enough to run a Hustle mon.
Yeah, I think Dracozolt missed like 2 or 3 moves that match.
Yeah,
Like Hustle,
yeah.
I swear Hustle's 50%. I think they got their coding wrong. It's 50% for sure.
I mean, you're just begging for bad luck if you draft a Hustle mon. But so turn 4, Ian gets 94% on that Dracozolt. Turn 5, TCP swaps his Gliscor into an Ice Fang. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's looking like Ian's about to just completely demolish TCP, quite frankly. At turn 5, it's looking really, really bad for TCP. Until around turn was it? Was it 19, I think, or 14? Turn 14, Klefki hit the field. And it was the end of the game when Klefki left at turn 38. And it had set up Iron Defense, Calm Minds, Rest, Dazzling Gleam. And Ian had no answer for it. He had no Roar. He had no way to reset. He had no Haze. And that was really it. It was a great match. And quite frankly, Ian was out in the lead early on until Klefki showed up. And then it was all over.
Yeah, and Klefki is actually every week we're going to be, or I guess maybe not every week. We'll see how it goes from here on out. But at least this week we are highlighting one set for the week, and that is this Klefki, the leftovers with Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Dazzling Gleam, and Rest. I can say for sure that I was not expecting, when I saw the lineup of both teams, I would have never guessed going into the match, oh yeah, this is a match where Klefki is going to sweep. I mean, just seeing that Klefki set up on everything, survive everything, rest up with Prankster, and I mean, Ian did a very good job through the match. Like, when Gliscor went down, I definitely thought the match was going in Ian's favor. But I definitely also don't blame Ian for not prepping for this Klefki because it was it was definitely a very powerful and unexpected set to come.
Yeah, it's one of those tough things because you got like, you got Tornado's Theory in there, who's one of the better taunters in the meta, and he had other mons that maybe could have roared or could have done things, but you know, it's hard to prep for everything. And sometimes when you don't prep for everything, something comes up and gets you. And it was good enough for set of the week for us.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to go on to the final week or final battle?
And I think you're up for the featured match.
All right. So here is our featured match of the week. This one is Melone versus Dravos. It's even though it was a 3-0, it is tied for some of our closest games, and I'm actually going to go ahead and let this game play in the background while we talk about it. So, this game, it was really back and forth. I mean, during a lot of the beginning of it, it was just setting up rocks and two tanks facing each other. Dravos had a really bulky team, but things like the Salazzle ended up coming in and dealing a large amount of damage to Alomomola. And the first big turning point, I think, is when Garchomp came in and forced Dravos to sack his... He had to choose a sack, and it was that Mega Aggron. And at that point, I thought that Dravos had just lost enough bulk that there was no way he could stave the game at that point.
Mm.
But he did end up putting on a lot of pressure with stuff like the Weavile, and eventually was able to, after the Garchomp went down, and the Lickilicky, I believe, was the second one to go down. After that, the Hitmonlee was able to come in and really turn the tide straight back into Dravos' favor.
Looking at this particular match, Melone needed either the Garchomp or the Fortress to remain healthy so that they could help deal with his Hitmonlee. Or, maybe the Rockberry, I think it's Charty, to help with the Stone Edge. But, oddly enough, the first 3 mons to die from Melone were the 3 potential answers to Hitmonlee. And so good on Dravos to get the kills that he needed. Bad on Melone for not keeping that end game in mind the whole time, because no matter what, to win a game, you have to get through the end game. And he did lose a couple of mons that he had to have in order to beat that Hitmonlee. And so I thought Melone was ahead early. I thought there were times in which he was really in control of this match. But eventually, the right mons died and the right mons lived for Hitmonlee to take over, which it did, and dominate.
Yeah. I do think I loved Malone's prep with the double berries. It's funny that the Fortress resisted the Fire Punch from Mega Aggron, and the Garchomp resisted the Ice Punch from Mega Aggron because of those berries. And those two combined really helped to slowly whittle down the Mega Aggron to get him into the favorable position in the beginning. Like you said, the end game wasn't quite there after that, but the early game, I think Melone was just in a really good position because of those berries.
Yeah, the berries played a big part in it. And if you look at the remaining mons past Hitmonlee, right? If Melone was able to get Hitmonlee out, and get rid of its speed boost, or to kill it, what's Gengar and Sylveon gonna do to that Choice Spec Salazzle, right? We knew it was Choice Specs because of how much the Sludge Wave did on the Alomomola. I mean, what are those 2 mons left to do to that Salazzle? So And maybe it was Scarf Gengar. I don't know. I don't think Gengar ever actually hit the field. We don't know. But if Melone was able to get rid of Hitmonlee, it seemed like victory was certain. So really tight match. It was a 3-0, but 3-0s usually are maybe one or two decisions away from swapping sides, and this was a close one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so just a few more turns in this match to play out.
The thing that I will say Malone could have tried to do differently. He's got that wish passing licky licky. Maybe if he could have got a wish off, get a wish into Fortress, maybe get a wish into that Garchomp instead of letting them go. Yeah, I think it was turn. Gosh, I can't remember, but he let Weavile Ice Shard his Garchomp. And
Yeah.
so he let his Garchomp go, but then I think his next turn was to bring in Fortress on the Weavile. It seemed like some way maybe we could have saved one of those two. Maybe we could have brought in the Lycanroc Midnight to take that Ice Shard or something else. I don't know, but it seemed like letting Garchomp go at that point wasn't the
Yeah.
right move.
Yeah, and the Fortress actually did have Gyro Ball, and when it was in on the uh, Weavile, it didn't click the Gyro Ball. I guess it was going for a prediction or something. But I believe that after that, that's when the Weavile was able to put on even more pressure. So if the Gyro Ball had been clicked, even if it was a switch into like Sylveon, Gengar, those would have both taken a lot. So I think there was one turn there where the Gyro Ball in particular could have been a better play. But
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if that would have changed the entire pace of the game or not. I mean, there's no way to know with some of these things.
It is hard to say, and I don't really love theory mining, but who knows?
Yeah.
But we did see the power of Dravos' roster. I mean, his roster really highly in the draft recap. I mean, it was tied for the highest ranking for me. I think he had an A minus. I had 3 of those, and it was tied for first. Put it off, man. Like, it has a lot of ability. Aggron, I'm fairly certain, was max attack. I don't know if it was 252 or if it was close, but it looked like it was getting off a lot of damage. I'm thinking that it was heavily invested in attack. It did a lot of work early on. I thought that was a nice kind of sucker play to let you think that, it's fine. It's just normal bulky Aggron. Not quite. It was quite powerful with a lot of elemental punches, and so really nice prep on both sides. Really nice play on both sides. Just a little bit of misprioritization on Malone's side turned into a gift of opportunity for Dravos. He took his ticket and won our featured match of the week.
Yeah, indeed. So, that's been it for week 1 of the ASL, and week 2 has actually already started, and we've already got one match played of that. Even though it's still Sunday, people really getting in there with those games. I'm really excited for all of the future games, seeing all of the lessons that people learn from this week, and seeing all of the new Pokemon that didn't show up or maybe didn't hit the field. I'm really looking forward to it.
And I think something that I always like to mention, week 1 is the hardest week of the season, honestly. You don't know what people are going to bring, don't know how they're going to use it. There's no trends. Everyone is equal. This is the hardest week of the entire season, maybe, in terms of prediction and preparation. It's a completely blank slate. Week 12, you're going to know, I'm going to have trends. I'm going to have sets that I continue to use over and over again. There's going to be things that you can feed off of. And so if you're out there and you lost your match, don't be discouraged. A season left. If you're out there and you won your match, don't just sit back and relax yet. This is week 1 can be very deceptive.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. It's been a pleasure doing another video with you, Brad.
Absolutely, buddy. Hey, if you're watching this, just know what you think. Do you like it? Do you want to see it again? Do you want to see this next week? Give us some feedback and let us know if you're interested in continuing.
Yeah. Absolutely. With that, that's both of us signing off.